Catholic and Protestant according to the Bible.
Part 4. The Sporadic Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation emerged as an attempt to reform the Catholic Church. On October 31, 1517, the day Christians commemorate All Saints' Eve, Martin Luther is said to have nailed the text of the 95 Theses, or Argument Against the Power of Indulgences, to the door of All Saints' Church in Wittenberg. The manuscript contains an explanation of various kinds of deviations in the Catholic Church, both related to doctrine and related to practice, especially the sale of indulgences.
The 95 Theses question and condemn many aspects of the Church and the papacy, including purgatory, special judgment, and the authority of the Pope.
Later, Martin Luther also wrote against Catholic devotion to the Virgin Mary, the intercession of the saints, devotion to the saints, the obligation of celibacy for clergy, monasticism, the authority of the Pope, ecclesiastical law, censorship and excommunication, the role of secular leaders in religious life, the relationship of Christianity to law, good works, and the sacraments. What Luther taught was neither new nor reformist. Instead, Luther simply discarded the old teachings, yeast, that existed in the Catholic Church, especially Roman Catholicism.
Returning Christian teaching to the teachings of Jesus Christ and the apostles. Although far from perfect, Luther eliminated crucial teachings that distanced people from salvation, which is the primary goal of the gospel of Christ.
Catholics believe that Martin Luther was the pioneer of the Protestant Reformation, but this is not true. The pre-Reformation and Reformation movements that occurred almost simultaneously in Europe are proof that it was not the work of humans, but rather the intervention of God's plan. It was only because the doctrines standardized in his theses were generally accepted, or because they were of the same opinion, that Luther became the main accused of being the cause of the Reformation.
After the Pope excommunicated Martin Luther and condemned the Protestant Reformation, John Calvin's work and writings contributed to the emergence of a loose consensus among various groups in Switzerland, Scotland, Hungary, Germany, and elsewhere. After the expulsion of the Prince Bishop of Geneva in 1526 and the failure experienced by the reformer Guillaume Farel in Bern, Johannes Calvin was asked to use his organizational skills, which he had mastered since attending law school, to enforce order in the city of Geneva. The Ordinance of 1541 that he issued included cooperation in the administration of church affairs with the city government assembly and consistory in order to uphold noble morals in all aspects of community life.
After the Geneva Academy was founded in 1559, Geneva became the unofficial capital of the Protestant movement, a city that provided refuge to exiled Protestants from across Europe and trained them to become Calvinist missionaries. Protestantism continued to spread after John Calvin's death in 1563.
As in Germany, in Switzerland, a reform movement emerged under the leadership of Huldrych Zwingli, a scholar and Catholic priest who emigrated to Zurich in 1518. Although the German and Swiss movements were aligned on many theological issues, there were some differences that could not be bridged, so the two movements remained separate.
The long-standing bitterness between the German states and the Swiss Confederacy gave rise to debate about how much of Zwingli's ideas he drew from Luther's teachings. The Prince-Elector of Hesse, Philip I, saw an opportunity to form a Zwingli-Luther alliance and brought the two together at his castle in 1529. This meeting, now known as the Marburg Colloquium, is famous for its failure to reconcile Zwingli and Luther. The two failed to reach a consensus due to disagreements over a key doctrine. In 1534, King Henry VIII abolished all papal jurisdiction in England because the Pope was unwilling to annul his marriage to Catalina de Aragon.
due to political considerations involving the Holy Roman Emperor.
The king's decision opened the door for the entry of church reform ideas. The stance of the reformers in the Church of England, which sometimes leaned towards the ancient Catholic tradition and sometimes also leaned towards Calvinist creeds, little by little developed into a school that was considered a middle way, Latin via media, between the Catholic school and the Protestant school.
The English Reformation took a unique path. The distinctive feature of the English Reformation stemmed from the political interests of King Henry VIII. It was King Henry who decided to remove the Church of England from the sphere of Roman authority. In 1534, the Act of Supremacy was passed, establishing the king as the sole supreme head of the Church of England. Between 1535 and 1540, under the leadership of Thomas Cromwell, a government policy called the enclosure of the monasteries was implemented. After a brief restoration of the position of Catholicism during the reign of Queen Mary I, a loose consensus emerged during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. The Elizabethan resolve of the religious problem significantly influenced the formation of Anglicanism as a distinct sect. The resulting compromise, awkward and ambiguous, between extreme Calvinism on the one hand and Catholicism on the other, remained relatively successful until the Puritan Revolution or English Civil War in the 17th century. The success of the Counter-Reformation, Catholic Reformation, in continental Europe and the growth of the Puritan group, which sought to advance Protestant reform measures, colored the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. The early Puritan movement was a movement that advocated for reform within the Church of England. Its proponents wanted the Church of England to be more like the Protestant churches in Europe, especially the Protestant Church in Geneva. Later Puritan movements, often called dissenters and nonconformists, ultimately gave rise to various Calvinist denominations. The Scottish Reformation of 1560 completely changed the shape of the Scottish Church. The Protestant Reformation in Scotland reached its peak in the ecclesiastical field with the formation of a church in harmony with Calvinist beliefs, as well as in the political field with the victory of English influence over French influence. John Knox is considered the leader of the Scottish Reformation. The Scottish Reformation Parliament of 1560 repudiated papal authority by passing the Papal Jurisdiction Act of 1560, prohibiting the celebration of Mass and adopting a Protestant confession of faith. The Scottish Reformation was made possible by a revolt against French hegemony under the regent Marie de Guise, who ruled Scotland in the name of her daughter. Other prominent activists of the Protestant Reformation were Jacobus Arminius, Theodore de Beze, Martin Bucer, Andreas Karlstadt, Heinrich Bullinger, Balthasar Hubmaier, Thomas Cranmer, Guillaume Farel, Thomas Munzer, Laurentius Petrie, Olaus Petrie, Philip Melanchthon, Menno Simons, Louis de Berquin, Primož Trubar, and John Smith. Amidst this religious fervor, the German Peasants' War of 1524 to 1525 arose, sweeping through the princedoms of Bavaria, Thuringia, and Swabia. Following the 80-decade war in the Low Countries and the French Wars of Religion, the divisions over religious differences among the states of the Holy Roman Empire ultimately led to the 3 Decades War between 1618 and 1648. The war devastated almost all of Germany, killing 25 to 40% of its population. Key points of the Peace Treaty of Westphalia, which ended the 3 Decades War. That concludes the history of the Protestant Reformation. So, how does the Bible describe the Protestant Reformation? 1. As a mustard tree that has grown with its main branches. 2. Protestant Christians are a flock of sheep from the pen of one pope who were called out by Jesus Christ and they listened to the voice of their great shepherd and came out to follow Jesus. John 10:4, 5, 16.
3. Protestant Christians are descendants of the woman clothed with the sun, the moon at her feet, and a crown of 12 stars, which symbolizes the Roman Catholic Church, Revelation 12, verses 1 to 2 and 17. 4. Denominations are entities that participate and witness in the race of faith. 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 25, 1 Timothy 6:12, 2 Timothy 2:5, 2 Timothy 4:7, Galatians 5:7, Hebrews 12:1.